Budapest, September 1936. A young mother is holding her newborn son. She doesn't know it yet, but the city they are in will soon be destroyed.
The day before the boy's third birthday, the sky turns black. World War II begins.
At 4 years old, a fever burns through the boy's body. He survives, but the world goes silent. He's left nearly deaf just as the air raid sirens begin to wake.
In 1942, his father is ripped away and dragged to a forced labor camp.
By 1944, the Nazis have occupied the streets. His cousins are packed into cattle cars for Auschwitz. To stay alive, his mother obtains false identity papers.
She pulls her 8-year-old son into a freezing cellar. She grabs his shoulders and whispers,
"Your name is no longer Andras. You are someone else now. And if you make one mistake, if you forget, we are both dead."
But the horror isn't over. In 1945, as the Soviet army liberates the city, the boy watches as soldiers assault his mothers during the brutal siege of Budapest.
he survives the Nazis. He survives the Soviets. And in October 1956, with the tanks rolling in again, he stands on a street corner with one suitcase and just $20 in his pocket.
His father looks him in the eye and gives him his final command.
Go. Save yourself. We are staying behind.
He turns that corner and never sees them again. He flees into the night, a stateless refugee.
This is the boy who bussed tables at a New Hampshire resort until he was bone weary.
The student who sat in the front row of every class reading his professor's lips because he couldn't hear the lectures.
The name he was told to forget was Andras Grof.
But the name he gave himself in America, the name that would change the world, was Andy Grof.
He would go on to build Intel, the heartbeat of the modern world, saving a dying industry with a single brutal question, and he had a philosophy that changed business forever.
Only the paranoid survive.
Even when cancer came for him, he didn't blink. He fought his own cells like they were a rival foe.
Because he knew better than anyone what it took to stay alive. In the year 2000, he told the world,
"It is very important truism that immigrants and immigration are what made America what it is. We must be vigilant as a nation to have a tolerance for differences, a tolerance for new people."
Andy Grove passed away in 2016, but he left us with a code for the outsiders and the refugees who refused to be erased.
It was the last line of his memoir and the 4 words the New York Times used to close his obituary.
Andy Grove wrote, "I am still swimming."
Hi, I'm Vaishali.
And I'm Harsh, and this is the Victory Code podcast, where ambition meets direction.
Every episode, we pick one extraordinary immigrant life, someone who crossed borders, started over with nothing.
We go all the way back, their childhood, their journey, their failures, their successes, and everything in between.
And we hand you their mindset, their turning points, and their hard-won strategies distilled into specific thinking tools you can actually use.
Not inspiration, systems. Not motivation, codes.
Budapest in the 1930s is one of the greatest jewels of Central Europe. It's a city of opera houses, grand coffee shops, and a parliament building on the Danube River that rivals anything in Vienna.
It is a city of 2 halves, divided by the Danube River. To the west lies Buda, high on the hills with its ancient royal palace.
To the east is Pest, the flat, bustling heart of commerce and culture.
The Grof family lived in Pest. The father, Georg Grof, anglicized as George Grof, had no formal education to speak of. He was a man who figured things out by doing them. He built his dairy business through pure instinct and stubbornness.
The mother, Maria, was the bookkeeper of the business and of the household. She was the one who knew exactly where the money was and where the gaps were.
On September 2nd, 1936, they had a son. They named him Grof Andras.
The family was Jewish, but they weren't observant, and their surname, Grof, wasn't recognizably Jewish. In a decade where the distinctions would soon mean the difference between life and death, that name was an accidental mercy.
By Andy Grove's own account in his memoir, Swimming Across, those early years were happy. He had friends in the neighborhood, he was bright, he had parents who loved each other and loved him.
It was a normal, good, ordinary life. That life lasted until he was 4 years old.
1940. He is 4 and playing in a sandpit near the river with a girl his age. She stops digging, looks at him, and says something as casually as a remark about the afternoon weather.
She says, Jesus Christ was killed by the Jews, and because of that, all the Jews will be thrown into the Danube.
He runs home crying. He is never taken back to that park again.
Before that year is even out, the danger moves from the streets into his own body. Scarlet fever sweeps through Budapest, and it catches him.
Scarlet fever is caused by the Streptococcus pyogenes bacteria. It starts with a burning fever and a sandpaper rash.
Before antibiotics, it could quickly turn into a bone-eating infection, rotting the bone behind the ear.
Andy spends 6 weeks in the hospital. The infection spreads deep into his head. Surgeons literally chisel the bones behind both his ears to stop the bacteria from reaching his brain.
He survives, but he spends the next 9 months trapped in bed. His mother sits beside him every single day reading the Jungle Book out loud.
When he finally emerges from that room, the world is muffled. The fever and the surgeries have left him with permanent, significant hearing loss in both ears. He's 4 years old and he can only hear half of what anyone says to him.
For the rest of his childhood and for much of his adult life, he is partially deaf in a world that communicates entirely through sound.
So, he teaches himself to lip read. He learns to watch faces the way other people listen to voices.
In 1942, Grov's father is drafted into the Hungarian army, but George Grof is Jewish, and in Hungary in 1942, that means he is not permitted to serve as a regular soldier.
He is sent to the Eastern Front as a forced laborer, clearing roads ahead of the fighting, building fortifications, doing the invisible, dangerous work.
At the train station, before he goes, George Grof puts his fingers into the corners of his own mouth and stretches it as wide as it will go, making the most ridiculous smile he can manage, trying to make his wife laugh.
A man going to a labor camp, trying to hold it together for his family, trying to make her laugh one last time before the train pulls away.
Then the train is gone.
1 year later, a letter arrives.
It says, disappeared at the front.
For the next 2 years, Andy Grove and his mother do not know if his father, George, is alive. He is 6 when his father leaves, he is 7 when that letter arrives.
Maria never lets him see her break. She found food in an empty city and made plans where there were no good options. She does everything she can to survive.
March 1944. Germany occupies Hungary. What follows is one of the most concentrated episodes of mass murder in the entire history of the Holocaust.
In roughly 2 months from May to July 1944, nearly 500,000 Hungarian Jews are deported to Auschwitz. The pace is so extraordinary that historians still struggle to describe the scale of it.
Andy Grove is almost 8 years old, living in Budapest, Jewish. His father may be dead and he has no way to know it.
His mother makes the decision that saves both their lives. She obtains false identity papers from Christian contacts willing to take a risk that could get them all killed.
She gives her son a new name, Andras Maleshevich, and then she sits her 8-year-old boy down and says the thing no mother should ever have to say to her child.
She says you cannot make a mistake. You have to forget your real name. You are not Andras Grof anymore. You are Andras Maleshevich.
Because if you slip, if you say the wrong name, if you respond to the wrong question, if your face shows the wrong thing at the wrong moment, we both will die.
Grove recalled this conversation almost word for word nearly 50 years later in a 1997 interview with Time magazine.
Grove takes the tram to the hiding place. He sits by the window. He watches his reflection appear and disappear in the dark glass. And he says the name under his breath over and over.
Andras Maleshevich. Andras Maleshevich. Andras Maleshevich.
He is 8 years old, memorizing a stranger's name so he can be alive tomorrow.
For the next year, they live in plain sight in a city where soldiers pull Jewish families off the streets almost every day, in an apartment that is not theirs, with names that are not theirs, living a life that is not theirs.
From a 4th floor window, he watches German trucks line up outside. Jewish families walk out with their hands raised, even the children.
The trucks drive away, tears run down his face, but he says nothing. He has already learned that saying nothing is a form of survival.
His grandmother is gone. His aunts, his uncles, his cousins, almost his entire extended family taken in those months. Only one person from that world comes back alive, his Aunt Mansi. She is a seamstress. The guards put her to work sewing uniforms instead of sending her to the gas chamber.
The Soviets arrive in Budapest in February 1945 and call it liberation. For the Grof family, liberation comes with its own horror. In his memoir, Swimming Across, Grof discloses with a controlled, careful language that Soviet soldiers raped his mother in the chaos of the city's fall.
He is 8 years old. He has spent a year being someone who wasn't him. He has watched his family's world taken apart piece by piece, and now he's watching what the people who call themselves liberators do when they arrive.
Then one September morning, a doorbell rings.
A skeletal man in a ragged uniform is standing at the door. His mother freezes. Then she leaps forward and holds him.
Andy stands alone, watching. He thinks, this must be my father. This broken, hollow stranger, this must be my father.
George had survived the Eastern Front labor camp. He had survived typhoid fever and pneumonia. He had survived what witnesses describe as routine torture by German soldiers who found it entertaining. He came back almost unrecognizable. But he came back alive, and the family was together again.
Years later, in his memoir, Grof writes one sentence about the moment his father appeared at that door.
He writes, I was supposed to love him, but I was not sure what I felt.
Post-war Hungary doesn't bring freedom. It just changes uniforms. The Soviet-backed Communist Party takes control. And being Jewish, the Grof family finds themselves as targets once again.
Everything they had built was gone. The dairy Andy Grof's father had built from nothing was seized by the new communist government. Private businesses had no place in the new order.
In the middle of this grey, restrictive world, Andy finds a voice. At 14, he starts writing for a youth newspaper. He's talented, he can see a future in it.
But then, an uncle, a newspaper editor, is detained by the secret police without a trial. Suddenly, being a journalist is a death sentence. The wrong statement, the wrong opinion, or the wrong association could destroy him.
He makes a choice to walk away from writing and chooses chemistry.
His reasoning is simple. In a communist state, journalism relies on political correctness. What you can write, what conclusions you can draw, what facts you are permitted to report, all of it is controlled by the party.
But chemistry is not. An experiment either works or it doesn't. The data is the data. Politics doesn't have a vote in a lab.
He is a teenager in Budapest, finding the one thing the system cannot touch, and then this happens.
A physics teacher named Wolinski stands up at a parent-teacher conference and in front of every parent in the room says this.
Life is like a big lake. All the boys get in the water and start swimming. Not all of them will swim across, but one of them, I'm sure of it, will. That one is Grof.
His parents come back home and tell him he is embarrassed every time they repeat it.
But he also never forgets it. When Andy Grof finally writes his memoir, he calls it Swimming Across.
That brings us to our first victory code. But before we name this victory code, we want to mention that there is no code in war. There is no framework for what it means to watch your father disappear and come back unrecognizable. There is no lesson to extract from a mother being assaulted by the soldiers who came to liberate her. We are not trying to codify a childhood like this. We wouldn't dare.
But Andy Grove himself gave us one. Not from the tragedy, from what he built after it. He spent the rest of his life distilling everything that childhood taught him into a single, honest phrase. He put it in the title of his book. He ran a company by it. He lived by it.
And it's this. Only the paranoid survive.
Nobody should have to learn this the way he did. But he learned it. And he lived by it.
If you want to understand where that line truly came from, not the sanitized version you hear in business schools, but the original, you have to read his memoir first.
It's called Swimming Across, a memoir by Andy Grove. He wrote it in the same plain, unflinching language he used for everything else.
October 23rd, 1956. Grof is 20 years old and in his second year at the University of Budapest studying chemistry. He's good at it. He has direction, and for the first time in his life, the future feels promising.
Then the revolution begins. Hungarian students and workers pour into the streets of Budapest. Protesters pull down a statue of Stalin. The Hungarian secret police fire on a crowd outside the National Radio building. The fighting spreads across the city.
For a few extraordinary days, the outcome was genuinely uncertain. Soviet forces in Hungary were ambivalent. The Hungarian military was fragmenting. Even some soldiers were handling their weapons to the protesters. There was a moment, brief, real, historical, when it looked like it might actually work.
Grof watches from the streets as his classmates join the fighting. Some of them do not come home.
Then, on the morning of November 4th, he wakes up to a sound he has not heard in 11 years.
Heavy, rhythmic, like wooden planks being dropped one after another on stone.
He lies very still while his memory tells him exactly what that sound means.
Roughly 1,000 Soviet tanks roll into Budapest. Operation Whirlwind. The Hungarian Revolution of 1956 is over in hours. Young people are shot in the streets. Arrests begin across the country. The borders with Austria start to close.
He and his family return to the cellar, the same place they sheltered 11 years earlier when a different army came. Same city, same atrocity, different uniform.
The first time a regime came for him, he was 8. He hid, he waited, he survived. But this is the second time, and he's 20. And his aunt Mansi, the only person who came back from Auschwitz, the only one, has something to say about waiting.
In early December, Aunt Mansi comes home from shopping. Still in her coat, she has just watched Soviet soldiers pull up trucks and take young people off the street. Just people who happen to be passing by.
She walks straight to Andy. No greeting, she says, Andras, you must go and you must go immediately.
This is the woman who survived Auschwitz. She does not exaggerate. She has already used up every reserve of understatement she has.
His father, the man who survived the labor camp, the typhoid, the pneumonia, the torture, says it too. He tells Andy, you should go. You may never have a better chance.
That night, Andy Grof walks slowly through every room of the apartment. He straightens his chemistry set. He picks up things and puts them back down. He is saying goodbye without making a sound to everything he recognizes.
In the morning, they say their final goodbyes at the street corner. Andy Grof starts walking away from his family.
And then he notices something and suddenly stops.
He has automatically put the apartment key in his pocket. The way he had done every morning of his life without thinking about it. He runs back to his mother. He presses the key into her hand.
He says, I probably won't need this anymore.
She nods, tears running down her face. She doesn't speak.
He turns around and walks away.
He does not look back. Because if he had looked back, he was not entirely certain he would have kept walking.
He and his best friend János Lani board a train heading west, as close to the Austrian border as they dare. 20 miles out, word reaches them. Police checkpoints ahead. The Russians are moving through the countryside.
They get off the train. They pull what is left of their money and buy directions from a hunchback smuggler who knows the back routes to Austria the soldiers haven't found yet.
At midnight, the smuggler leads them into the dark. He appears every few minutes out of nowhere, redirects them, vanishes back into the trees. A flare explodes in the sky. They hit the ground, don't move, don't breathe. It burns out, they get up, they keep walking.
Then the smuggler appears one last time. He points at faint lights across a dark field.
He says, those lights are Austria. This is as far as I can go, and he leaves them.
They walk towards the lights. After what feels like hours, a farmhouse. Dogs bark. A man steps out holding a kerosene lantern high above his head. He calls into the dark, in Hungarian. Who is there?
Grof's heart stops. He has heard stories of people who walked in circles and ended up back in Hungary without even knowing it.
He stands up slowly, walks towards the man and asks, where are we?
The man smiles, wide, warm, unhurried.
Austria, he says.
Just the one word, Austria. And the relief pours through Andy like cold rain.
The man brings them inside, pours plum brandy. Austrian police arrive and take them to the village schoolhouse for the night. Straw on the floor. There is no heat and no blankets. Before dawn comes, Grof and his friends slip out.
They find a peasant woman walking to the market in Vienna. They follow her to a set of railway tracks in the middle of nowhere. She says the train will stop here, and it does. The conductor sees their mud-caked clothes, understands, waves them through without asking for fare.
The train moves west through Germany. At the border, German guards in peaked caps walk the carriages, the same peaked caps Grof remembers from his childhood. They check his papers, they salute, and they move on.
Then Passau, just inside Germany. German students on the platform handing out hot chocolate with warm smiles. Kids his age, only better dressed. He exhales properly for the first time in weeks.
George and Maria Grof do not follow their son. Grof never says why, but they stay in communist Hungary.
Grof's father lives out his years in the city where he built his dairy and raised his boy. His mother dies while her son is on the other side of the world at the height of his career, running one of the most powerful companies on earth.
He cannot get on a plane and be with her. Hungary is still behind the Iron Curtain. The distance between Budapest and Silicon Valley in those years is not just geographical.
He writes letters, eventually telephone calls. But his parents never get to see in person what he actually built.
By the time he sits down to write his memoir, both his parents are gone.
He left his mother on a street corner with a key pressed into her hand. That was the last time he saw either of his parents.
In his memoir, he writes that he never went back to Hungary, not once. He says he has never desired to revisit it himself.
The International Rescue Committee takes him from Vienna to New York City. He arrives on January 7, 1957, along with 1,715 other Hungarian refugees. He goes to live with an aunt and uncle in Brooklyn. They are the only family he has on this side of the world.
And then comes the name change.
Andras István Grof, the name his parents gave him in Budapest in 1936. The name his mother whispered to him to forget so that both of them could live.
He has worn a stranger's name before. This time, he gets to choose his own.
He sits down and thinks about it. He needs something Americans can say without stumbling and something close enough to carry a piece of who he was. In Hungarian, Grof means count, as in a nobleman. He finds an English word that sounds like it. Grof. Andrew Grof.
Andras István Grof becomes Andrew S. Grof, aka Andy Grof.
Of all the things that happened to him, there is one moment Andy Grof carried for 60 years. A caseworker at the International Rescue Committee, IRC, sat him down at a desk in New York and handed him a blank check.
The caseworker had looked at his file. They saw the hearing loss, so they gave him a blank check and told him, go to a shop and buy yourself a good hearing aid. Now this is what makes America great again and again and again.
He was 20 years old, he'd been half deaf since he was 4, he had $20 in his pocket and spoke almost no English. And this stranger, someone who processed, by the way, hundreds of refugees every week, cared enough to give him a way to finally hear.
That one act changed him. 44 years later, when he published Swimming Across, he didn't keep a dime of the advance. He gave it all to the International Rescue Committee.
The next step for Andy Grof is getting an education. So he enrolls at the City College of New York. Free tuition, the traditional launching pad for New York's immigrant struggles.
The lectures are the first problem. He's new to English. The hearing aid does help, but it does not fully restore hearing. So he sits in the front row of every class, as close to the professor as he can get, reading lips, catching words he understands, filling in the gaps from context.
Then in the evening, he sits at the kitchen table with a Hungarian English dictionary open beside his notebook. Every word he could not follow in the lecture, and there are many, he looks up, one by one. He writes the English meaning in his own handwriting. Then he reads the whole thing again from the top.
Understand what that actually means. A lecture that takes a professor 1 hour to deliver takes him 4 hours to reconstruct.
And here is what that forces him to do. He does not just learn, he reconstructs his lectures every night, word by word, line by line, until the material is no longer something he heard, it is something he built himself. He knows it differently from everyone else in the class.
When he is not studying, he works as a busboy. Dishes, tables, the invisible physical labor that keeps a restaurant running and gives a broke student just enough money to get by.
In 1960, 3 years after arriving in America with $20, he graduates at the top of his class in chemical engineering.
And this brings us to our next victory code. The only way to fail for sure is to stop.
The moment you stop, the outcome is decided. But while you're still in it, still at the table, still looking up the next word, still showing up, the outcome is still open. Nobody has won yet, nobody has lost yet.
Now, before anything else, we want to say something. Andy Grove was not sitting at that kitchen table at midnight to inspire anyone. He was not building a philosophy. He was a 20-year-old refugee in a foreign country who had no other option, trying to survive so he could build a life here.
We are not romanticizing that. The midnight table was not a montage. But underneath the trauma, there is a soft, stubborn pulse of hope. It's not a grand speech, it's just the quiet voice that stays with you in the dark and whispers, "Stay, try one more time."
In the summer of 1957, Andy Grove is 20 and he finds a job bussing tables at a resort in New Hampshire. cleaning dishes, saving money for the next semester at City College.
A few tables away, a young woman named Eva Kastan is working as a waitress. She is studying at Hunter College in New York.
She is 21 years old. She's Austrian. And she is the only other person in that resort dining room who understands exactly what the last 10 years of Andy's life have felt like.
Eva Kastan was born in Vienna on November 28, 1935. She's 3 years old when her family flees. The year is 1938. The event is Kristallnacht.
The night Nazi leaders unleash a wave of violent riots across Germany, Austria, and their neighbors. Jewish businesses burn. Synagogues burn. Windows shatter across an entire continent. A family manages to escape.
They flee to Bolivia. Eva grows up in La Paz speaking Spanish in a landlocked country in South America.
She arrives in New York at 18. She enrolls at Hunter College, the public college that, in her own words, opens the doors to America for her. She is guided by Hunter's motto, "The care of the future is mine." She takes it very seriously.
Both of them find the summer resort job through their university's job placement center. They have grown up on the opposite sides of Europe, but inside the exact same story. The same uprooting, the same displacement.
The same quiet loneliness of being a person whose past nobody around them fully understands. They understand each other immediately in the way that only people with the same invisible history can.
A year later, on June 8, 1958, he marries her in Queens, New York. The same year, she graduates from Hunter College. They move to California together and have 2 daughters, Karen and Robbie.
Eva earns her master's degree in social work from Columbia University. She works in adoptions, matching children with families, navigating the most fragile possible human transactions with steadiness and care.
She tutors immigrants preparing for their citizenship interviews. She volunteers at Planned Parenthood. She serves on the board of the Immigrant Legal Resource Center, the organization that advocates for the people arriving in America the way she once arrived.
She was not in the background of Andy Grove's story. She was running a parallel story at full speed for her entire adult life. They found the Grof Foundation together in 1986, a private philanthropy built on their shared identity as refugees. When Andy donated $26 million to City College, Eva donated $9 million to Hunter College.
She is in many ways the quiet spine of this entire story. When Andy is diagnosed with cancer in 1994, she watches him open his laptop and pull up every medical database he can find and build charts about his own survival. And she says the line that tells you everything about the 36 years of knowing this man.
She says, normally he is a baby. Anytime someone has a headache, he says it's cancer. But this time, it really was cancer. He was tough.
When Andy Grove passed away in March 2016, Eva did not stop. She continued the foundation's work, she continued advocating, she continued showing up for the people who needed her.
Eva Kastan Grof passed away on May 31st, 2023. She was 87 years old. She was at home and was surrounded by the people she loved. Her daughter Karen continues the foundation's work today.
The boy who had to forget his name found the one person who always knew exactly who he was. For Andy, Eva was his home.
Andy Grove moves to California and earns his PhD in chemical engineering from UC Berkeley in 1963. His thesis is in fluid dynamics. On graduating, he is flooded with job offers.
He chooses Fairchild Semiconductor, the company that at that moment is creating Silicon Valley. Robert Noyce is there, Gordon Moore is there.
The same Gordon Moore who came up with Moore's law. The foundational science of integrated circuits is being developed in those labs. By 1967, Andy Grove is Fairchild's Assistant Director of Research and Development. He is 31 years old.
Then, in 1968, Noyce and Moore decide to leave and start something new. Moore tells Grove they're going. Grove simply says, "I want to come too." That was about the length of the conversation.
Grove later recalled it himself. He said, "I never got an offer, or should I say, I never got an invitation."
Intel is incorporated on July 18, 1968. Robert Noyce and Gordon Moore are the co-founders. Andy Grove walks in not as a co-founder but as the third employee, Director of Engineering.
Robert Noyce is the visionary, the man who can walk into a room and make everyone believe the future is already here.
Gordon Moore is the scientist, the man who understands at genuine depth what the technology can become.
And Andy Grove is the operator. And in a technology company, the operator is very often the whole game. The idea is the beginning, execution is everything after that.
In its entire first year, Intel had no sales. The whole year is research and development building towards something nobody has built before. Its first sales arrive in 1969. $565,000.
What Intel is building in those early years is called DRAM, Dynamic Random Access Memory, the chip that stores information inside a computer.
Before Intel, computers used magnetic core memory. Slow, expensive, physically large. Intel's DRAM chip replaces all of that. Smaller, faster, cheaper. It is at that moment the most important component in computing.
For the better part of a decade, Intel and DRAM are the same thing. The company's identity, its revenue, its pride, all of it lives inside that chip.
Andy Grove implements the systems, he sets the standards, he creates a culture of accountability so intense and demanding that planning meetings with him are described by his own senior executives, and I am quoting from the accounts of that era, as the Hungarian Inquisition.
Pat Gelsinger, who worked under Grof for years and later became CEO of Intel himself, described what it felt like to present to Grof.
He said, if you went in, you had better have your data. You had better have your opinion, and if you could not defend your opinion, you had no right to be in that room.
Fortune magazine names Andy Grove one of the world's toughest bosses in 1984. Former colleagues describe his meetings as dentistry without Novocaine.
He corrects spelling errors on slides, he interrupts, he challenges, he demands that you know more than you thought you needed to know before you open your mouth.
He calls it constructive confrontation. The concept is that ideas should be challenged, voices should be raised, and personal comfort should not be protected.
The goal is always clarity, always the best idea winning.
This is a man who, as a child, learned that raising his voice could get him killed, who survived by becoming invisible and by erasing himself. And he builds a company where the highest virtue is speaking up, loudly, even to him, especially to him.
By 1974, Intel has 82.9% of the global DRAM market. 82.9. That is not just market leadership, that is total control.
Intel builds the commercial memory chip market from scratch, and for years it owns it almost completely.
Then Japan arrives. Hitachi, NEC, Toshiba, Fujitsu. Backed by patient government capital and a strategy of pricing below cost for years in order to seize market share. They are not competing on innovation, they are competing on price and on patience, and Intel cannot match them.
By 1984, Intel's DRAM market share has collapsed from 82.9% to 1.3%. 1.3. The factories are running at losses, the company is bleeding money, and the product Intel built is dying in plain sight in the data quarter after quarter, while nobody at the top wants to look at it directly.
The cultural problem runs deeper than the financial one. Middle managers, the people actually on the factory floor, have already made the rational decision.
They are quietly reallocating production capacity from DRAM to microprocessors, where the margins still exist and the Japanese haven't yet arrived in force. The floor has already moved. The executive suite is still negotiating with reality.
Grove later gives these people a name. He calls them the helpful Cassandras. The people closest to the market always feel the shift before the people in the corner offices do. They know, they say it in the language of resource allocation and production schedules in every way except directly, and nobody above them wants to hear it.
In 1985, Grove is sitting in his cubicle with Gordon Moore, looking out the window, quiet. The company they built together is dying, and both of them know it.
Grove turns to Moore and asks a question. He says, if we got kicked out, if the board lost patience tomorrow and brought in a new CEO from outside, what would that person do?
Moore doesn't hesitate. He says, get out of the memory business.
Now, DRAM is not just Intel's product, it is Intel's identity. Telling Intel it should exit the memory business is like telling Ford to exit the automobile business.
But Grove says, why shouldn't you and I walk out of the door, come back in, and do it ourselves?
Intel exits the DRAM business completely. Plants are shut down, more than 7,000 employees are laid off. That's almost a third of the workforce. The company that built the memory chip industry walks away from the memory chips.
Grove is honest about the process afterward. He says it is long and arduous and wasteful. They spend months on workarounds and niche strategies before finally accepting what the data has been screaming for years.
And this brings us to our next victory quote. It comes from the cubicle in 1985 and a question that changes everything.
Walk out of the door and come back. Grove was paralyzed. He had built Intel on memory chips, but the Japanese were crushing them. He couldn't kill his baby because of loyalty.
So he asks a different question. If someone replaced us tomorrow, what would they do? He used that thought experiment to strip away the ego and the history. He walked out, came back, and became the outsider his company actually needed.
If you relate to this code and want to go deeper, Grof wrote an entire book about the DRAM decision and everything it cost him. It is called Only the Paranoid Survive. He is honest about how long it took, how many people lost their jobs, and what the data was screaming for years before he finally acted.
And if you want to see what this looks like from the outside, read The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen. Christensen met Grof before the book was published and used Intel's DRAM exit as one of his central case studies for why great companies fail to make necessary pivots.
Intel reinvested everything into microprocessors, the chips that go into computers and tell them what to do, the brains of the machine, as opposed to the memory. This was the bet that would define the next 30 years of computing.
The timing was extraordinary. In 1981, IBM was building the personal computer. They needed a microprocessor. They chose Intel's 8088 chip.
That single decision put an Intel chip inside every IBM PC sold, and then inside every PC-compatible machine made by every manufacturer who copied the IBM design, which was essentially all of them. The personal computer revolution ran on Intel hardware.
In 1991, Intel made a marketing decision that was, by the standard of the semiconductor industry, completely unprecedented. They launched the Intel Inside campaign.
You have seen that logo, the small sticker on the corner of a laptop, the badge on a desktop computer, that little oval with the swoosh and the words Intel Inside.
The idea? Intel would subsidize the advertising of computer manufacturers, the IBMs, the Compaqs, the Dells, on the condition that those manufacturers displayed the Intel Inside logo on their products. Intel was advertising directly to the people who bought computers.
No chip company had ever done this. Components don't advertise.
But Andy Grove understood that if consumers specifically demanded Intel processors in their computers, Intel would have a form of market power that no competitor could easily replicate.
And he was right. By the mid-1990s, Intel Inside was one of the most recognized technology brand identities in the world.
But the campaign also created a problem that Grove would not fully reckon with until 1994. And the reckoning would cost nearly $500 million.
In June 1994, Intel's own engineers discover a flaw in the floating point unit of the new Pentium processor. It causes errors in certain very specific division calculations. Intel quietly begins fixing it in new versions of the chip, but does not tell the public.
4 months later, a mathematics professor named Thomas Nicely at Lynchburg College in Virginia notices the same error while running calculations on his Pentium. He contacts Intel, he is brushed off, so he emails his finding to academic contacts across the early internet.
The story spreads faster than any crisis Intel has ever managed. It hits the press in November. CNN runs a segment, then IBM steps in and says what Intel's own engineers had privately dismissed. The error could occur once every 24 days, not once every 27,000 years as Intel had claimed. IBM halts all Pentium computer shipments entirely.
Grove holds his position. He offers to replace chips for customers who can demonstrate a professional need for high-precision arithmetic. For ordinary consumers, he sees no basis for a blanket recall.
He treats it as an engineering problem. He's technically correct and strategically catastrophic.
What he misses is a shift the Intel Inside campaign itself has caused. Intel is no longer a component supplier selling to businesses that evaluate risk rationally.
It is now a consumer brand. Consumer brands do not get to decide whether a defect matters to their customers. Their customers decide.
Intel Inside campaign had made end users feel they had a personal relationship with Intel, and now Intel was telling those users that their concerns wasn't valid.
On December 20, 1994, Grove reverses the decision. Intel announces it will replace every flawed Pentium chip, unconditionally, no questions asked.
The pre-tax charge announced on January 17, 1995, $475 million, one of the largest single charges in Silicon Valley history at that point.
In 1983, Grove publishes High Output Management, the first serious systematic framework for running a technology company. Ben Horowitz calls it the best management book ever written.
Well, this is the same Ben Horowitz who is a Silicon Valley venture capitalist and co-founder of Andreessen Horowitz, one of the most powerful venture capital firms in the world, which has backed companies like Facebook, Twitter, Airbnb, and Coinbase.
And inside that book, and inside Grov's management practice at Intel going back to the early 1970s, is something even more vital than the book itself.
A framework he builds and calls IMBO, Intel Management by Objectives. He takes the earlier concept of management pioneer Peter Drucker and adds what Drucker left out: measurable key results attached to every objective.
IMBO stripped away the fluff, turning abstract goals into measurable results that were visible to everyone. It was a rigorous quarterly cycle that applied to everyone equally, from the newest hire all the way up to the CEO.
In 1975, a young Intel employee named John Doerr sits in Grov's IMBO course. He calls it for the rest of his life the most important management education he ever receives. He carries it with him when he leaves Intel and joins Kleiner Perkins, one of Silicon Valley's most powerful venture capital firms.
Now here is where the story takes an unexpected turn. A teenager in Delhi used to rent dog-eared American magazines and take long bus journeys home to read them. In those pages, he found an article about Andy Grove, an immigrant who had helped build a cutting-edge technology company in America. Something shifted in him. If a Hungarian immigrant could do it, why not an Indian one?
He co-founds Sun Microsystems in 1982, and the man who funds it and sits on its board is John Doerr, the same John Doerr who sat in Grove's IMBO course in 1975.
In 1986, that same teenager joins Kleiner Perkins as a general partner, sitting alongside John Doerr. His name is Vinod Khosla. The immigrant thread runs all the way through.
And now you know why Andy Grove seems similar to Vinod Khosla. In 1999, Doerr walks into the office of a company called Google. 30 employees, a ping pong table. He stands up in front of Larry Page and Sergey Brin and presents the framework. He calls it OKRs, Objectives and Key Results. He says it is how Intel ran its business.
Sergey Brin, a Soviet refugee who escaped to America as a child with his family. Not so different from the Hungarian refugee who built the system Doerr is now presenting. We have a full episode on Sergey Brin as well.
Page and Brin adopt it immediately and they never change it.
Today, every quarter, every one of Google's employees writes their own OKRs tied to the company's annual goals. The same system, unchanged since Grove built it. Now running LinkedIn, Netflix, Spotify, Airbnb, and hundreds of the most powerful companies in the world.
Andy Grove invents the operating system of modern Silicon Valley, and very few know his name in connection with it.
When Grove became Intel CEO in 1987, the company's annual revenue was approximately $1.9 billion, and its market cap was around $4 billion.
By 1997, his last full year as CEO, revenue had reached $20.8 billion, and when he stepped down in 1998, the market cap stood at $197 billion, a 4,500% increase in market value in 11 years.
Intel under Grove produced over 90% of all microprocessors used in personal computers globally by the late 1990s. The personal computer revolution, the thing that changed how every person on Earth works, communicates, learns, and entertains themselves, ran on Intel chips. And Intel ran on Andy Grove.
In 1997, Time magazine named him Man of the Year. The citation described him as the person most responsible for the amazing growth in the power and innovative potential of microchips. A refugee from Budapest who had arrived in America with $20 was on the cover of Time magazine as the most important person of the year.
In the autumn of 1994, Grove is 58 years old, CEO of Intel at the height of its power. By almost any external measure, he is at the peak.
Then a routine blood test comes back wrong. PSA levels elevated, a biopsy follows. Prostate cancer.
He goes home, opens his laptop. He finds a prostate cancer forum on CompuServe. He finds a review paper by the head of urology at Stanford. He downloads it, reads it beginning to end.
He builds a decision matrix, a chart comparing treatment options, survival rates at 5 and 10 years, side effect profiles. He consults multiple specialists. He evaluates each doctor's reasoning the way he evaluates competing business proposals. What evidence supports this? What assumption is this person making? What are the failure modes they are not acknowledging?
He looks at the options, he looks at his charts, and he chooses a cutting-edge, high-dose radiation therapy that none of his doctors has specifically recommended for his case, but whose evidence profile he finds most convincing. It works. His PSA drops. He goes into remission.
In May 1996, while still the sitting CEO of Intel, he writes a cover story for Fortune magazine, taking on prostate cancer. He includes the charts he made himself. He answers the questions most patients are too frightened to ask. He turns his own diagnosis into documentation that other people can use.
In 2000, Grof was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. He was 63 years old. He had just stepped down as Intel CEO 2 years earlier. He was serving as the company's chairman.
He responded the way he had responded to everything. He found the best available information. He engaged the research community.
He served as an advisor to Michael J. Fox Foundation, while he and Ava used their own Grof Foundation to fund Parkinson's research directly.
He continued teaching his business and management course at Stanford. He continued giving speeches and interviews. He continued writing. The disease progressed slowly as Parkinson's does, not all at once, but steadily taking things in a sequence.
The last time a journalist reported seeing him was at a Silicon Valley reunion in 2013. His hands were shaking visibly. His hearing was diminishing again. The hearing he had lost at 4, partially recovered through surgery, now retreating in the opposite direction.
Andy Grove passed away on March 21, 2016. He was 79 years old. Intel did not publicly release a cause of death. He died at home in Los Altos, California. Eva was there. The Austrian refugee he had met bussing tables at a resort in New Hampshire 58 years later was still with him at the end.
Andy Grove never moved into a corner office. He sat in a cubicle, the same open floor as everyone else. He believed that if you separated yourself from the floor, you stopped hearing what the floor was telling you.
They had a nickname for him, Mr. Clean, because he expected every surface in every Intel lab and factory to be spotless.
His PhD thesis professor wrote one sentence to Gordon Moore before Andy Grove was hired. Just one sentence. He wrote, "This is truly an unusual individual. Whoever hires him will be very, very lucky."
And late at night over scotch and sushi, he was partial to eel, the stories would slip out. The Budapest years, the false name, the tramp. His daughters called it what dad doesn't talk about. He rarely spoke of it publicly, but it was always there.
He wrote dozens of technical papers. He wrote a weekly management column carried by newspapers across the country. He taught at Berkeley and lectured at Stanford. He wrote 4 books. He had 2 daughters and 8 grandchildren.
And under his leadership, Intel became the 7th most profitable company in the world.
The boy who arrived with nothing had become the man who made sure others would have something.
To City College, the public university that asked nothing for tuition and gave him everything else, Andy Grove gave $26 million.
City College renamed its engineering faculty the Grove School of Engineering. The boy who once bussed tables to pay his living costs now has his name on the building.
He funded the UCSF Missions Bay campus, the largest ongoing biomedical construction project in the world at the time. In 2010, the IRC honored him as one of the 10 distinguished refugees of the decade.
The awards list is long. The IEEE gave him its highest honor, the IEEE Medal of Honor in 2000. The IEEE renamed one of its annual awards after him while he was still alive.
The Wharton School named him the most influential business person of the preceding 25 years.
He left behind the chips that run our world and the management systems that drive our greatest companies. But his most enduring legacy was not a product or a framework.
It was his refusal to stop.
The last line of his memoir, the 4 words the New York Times used to close his obituary.
He wrote, "I am still swimming."
If today's episode changed how you think about what is possible, share it with one person who needs to hear it. If you're not yet subscribed, this is a good moment.
Every episode of The Victory Code, we go deep into one extraordinary immigrant life and extract the mental frameworks and the turning points that you can actually use.
Not inspiration, systems. Not motivation, codes. The specific thinking tools that turn ordinary circumstances into extraordinary outcomes.
I am Vaishali.
And I'm Harsh, and this is the Victory Code podcast.